What is up, beautiful people, and welcome into the Beyond the Veil podcast. Today, I am joined by someone that has helped me on my path and my journey. I am joined here today by Nicole, who also goes by the High Priestess. She's a psychic medium and just somebody that's really helped me on my path tap deeper into my own psychic and channeling abilities, and somebody that has pushed me a little bit forward in those. So welcome in, Nicole. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So let's just dive right into it and dive deep. I mean, you've helped a lot of people in your space, and your Instagram and channeling and all that is growing yourself. Let's just give people a little bit of backstory on how did you get into this work? It's a much different path than most people would choose. So how did you come to where you are now?
I would say that I have always been this way. So I was born with spiritual gifts, and they are generational gifts. So my grandma had them, my great grandma, and so on and so on. But I was convinced from a very early age that there was something wrong with me, that I have a mental illness. That's what my mom taught me. That's what society teaches us, I think. You know, if you tell someone you hear voices, they usually tell you that there's something wrong. So I kind of spent my entire life thinking that I was crazy and not thinking that I was gifted. But you know, after a while, you kind of start to realize, oh, I'm right about a lot of things. This is weird. I just so happen to be right all the time. So I started to understand that I could trust myself. But to be honest, it took 30 something years to get to the point where I felt like I could trust myself. And so I went through a very profound and scary spiritual awakening. I had a out-of-body experience. And after that, when I came back into my body, all of my gifts were very clear, very loud. I couldn't push them to the side or ignore them anymore. And at that point, my spirit guides and ancestors began to teach me things. They began to speak to me, and they told me that I need to help people. And so here we are. That's how it started.
Okay. And in terms of that, developing the trust in yourself, what would you say allowed you to ultimately find that trust within yourself?
A lot of not trusting myself at first. I'll give you an example. When I meet someone, I get a vibe, I get a feeling really quick. And I think a lot of people are like this, but we're taught, oh, don't judge people. You never know, don't judge anyone. And so I would have those two conflicting voices in my head. The one voice that would say, stay away from that person is not honest. They're going to lie to you. And then I would have another voice inside of me, because I'm very empathetic and I love everyone. The other voice would say, well, you never know. Maybe you're judging them. Maybe that's not true. And so that happened throughout my entire life. And eventually I got so tired of knowing the answer and not listening to it, and then getting burned or having a negative experience, that I was like, you know what? I'm always right. I should listen to myself. So it took a lot of, I guess, trial and error. And there are times still when I don't trust myself. But really quickly I learned, oh, look what I did again. I didn't trust myself, and look what happened. So I think it's something that kind of self-corrects itself throughout our lives if we're paying attention.
And with always being right, that's a hard thing to even understand or fully accept, probably, for yourself, of like, I am always right. So if anybody wants to get in an argument with you, that's a difficult thing, because they're not going to win. But with always being right and like having this deep sense of intuition, have there been issues or like difficulties that you've faced within relationships or in relationship dynamics throughout your life?
Because of my gifts?
Yes.
Oh, this is such a good question. So I was very traumatized from an early age. I have a narcissist mom and an absent father. So that caused me to really seek love everywhere I could possibly seek it, and to abandon myself constantly. So I would know something wasn't right. My intuition was like, nope, this isn't a good idea. But my trauma was louder. And so I would get into these situations and very toxic relationships, and my gifts would always try to save me. And I would know all the time. And I'd be like, you're lying. And there would always be an argument and always a fight. And eventually I started to listen to myself. I have a great story to tell, actually. Okay. So I was in a very abusive relationship for 10 years. This was actually after I did mushrooms for the first time, because remember, I was convinced that I was mentally not well. So mushrooms were my final try to get better. I tried medicine, I tried therapy, I tried everything. And so I was desperate, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try mushrooms. And before that, I was an atheist. After mushrooms, I'm a believer. So I became way more psychic after I did mushrooms. It was like they brought my gifts online even more. And so I started to hear things a lot more than I ever did. And so I knew something was wrong. I was with this person for so long, on and off. I knew something was wrong. I was very anxious, very nervous, very uncomfortable all the time. And he would tell me, you're crazy. You need to go get on medication. You're crazy. And so one day he's at work and something in my head or my body says to me, look in his iPad. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I've done that before. It's not good. I don't want to look. And it was like, look in the iPad. It was like yelling at me. And I was like, okay, I'll look. And so I looked, and it was like directing me where to go. Something was like, no, go here, look there. And I was like, okay. And then the voice in my head led me to find out that he had a 15-year-old son that I didn't know about. And that's why I finally, after 10 years, left the relationship. So my gifts were always trying to save me.
Wow.
Crazy.
It is crazy, because I've had those a very similar experience in a relationship of like the person not being totally honest with me of like how they were feeling. And I had the same exact thing with a journal, actually, that it was like, look in her journal. And then there's all these stories of like that I'm a bad person and that I'm horrible and I'm gonna be in all my relationships like this person that does that stuff. But ultimately I found out from a journal that we weren't meant to be together. And so that's just such an interesting thing to like kind of challenge these narratives and listen to our intuition. How does someone, because I've struggled with this as well, of like, yeah, kind of always having this deep sense of just knowing, like I just know. And I feel like so many people do have these intuitive gifts and abilities. I think each person does, but we just don't listen to it. How does somebody develop their intuition more? Or how did they develop the trust to listen to that voice that inside that's always guiding them?
I would say a lot of times we ignore what's going on inside of us because we're so focused on what's going on outside. We're scrolling, we're hanging out with our friends, we're making plans to do this, making plans to do that. And nobody really stops and sits with themselves and listens to what is going on inside. I think a lot of it is because it doesn't feel good inside of us because we've been ignoring our pain and trauma for so long that we don't want to look inside. I remember there was a time where I think I would listen to 5 or 6 podcasts in a day because I could not stand the silence. It was too much for me to sit with myself, but that's what I needed to do. That's where the magic was. That's where the thing that I was seeking, that's where it was. But it was covered by a bunch of really uncomfortable emotions that I was not willing to feel. So I think we are very disconnected from ourselves. So why would we listen to ourselves if we kind of ignore the internal dialogue and ignore the emotions all the time anyways? So I think processing your emotions, sitting with your emotions, even though they're extremely uncomfortable, no more numbing yourself, then your internal voice gets really, really loud because it knows you're listening to it. So I think isolation, there's different types of isolation, right? There's types that are unhealthy, but being by yourself is so important. How do you listen to yourself if you don't know who you are? So getting to know yourself, asking yourself questions. Most people don't even know what they want in life. You are your best friend, but we don't treat ourselves like our best friends. We're mean to ourselves and we run away from ourselves. So I think just really sitting with yourself and getting to know the voice that's inside of you. And ask yourself questions and look at yourself in the mirror and be by yourself. Don't text your friends all day. Don't call your friends all day. Just be with you. I think that's like the perfect place to start.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I heard a quote today of like, it was Marianne Williamson who made the, I'm forgetting, the Course in Miracles. And she just said, mostly everybody's problems would be solved if they just spent more time in silence. And it is such a simple thing of like with you and having these deep, powerful spiritual gifts and psychic abilities and all of those things, it really just does come from what it sounds like of forming a deeper connection with yourself. And the way that we develop this deeper connection with ourselves is listening to ourselves and listening to the body. And that's something that I would love to ask you and have you speak on. Is I think a lot of us, when we go into the spiritual realm of like, oh, I'm a psychic and I'm just out in this woo-woo spiritual place all the time, and we disregard our bodies and how they have such a dire component in with tuning into our spirituality. Could you speak on that a little bit of like, what is the body's role in accessing your spiritual gifts?
Yeah, well, the subconscious, which knows everything, remembers everything, is your intuition. And the subconscious communicates through the body. So if something's wrong, your back's going to hurt. It's not just because you slept wrong. Something is messing with you and it's manifesting physically. So it will always try to communicate through the body first, but we usually ignore it. We take a pill. We do whatever it is we could possibly do to take the pain away, to alleviate the symptoms, but we're not getting to the root cause, which is almost always emotional. So for me, when I'm connecting to a person, when I'm working with a person, the first thing that happens is I start to feel their pain in my body. So like for you, the first time we talked, right away I was like, does your back hurt? Does your neck hurt? And you were like, yeah, that's how it works for me. So first it's the pain, and then I give all of my attention and awareness to the pain in my body, and then it begins to talk to me. It will show me a picture. It will give me a feeling. It will give me a knowing, and I will all of a sudden kind of know almost everything that someone has experienced, but it's through my connection with my body that feels what your body is feeling. So really, I think the body is a tool of psychic perception, and we don't realize it. And for me, the way that my gifts show up a lot is anxiety. If there's something going on and I should know something, I feel it immediately in the pit of my stomach, which is where the solar plexus is, which is where your intuition comes from. So that is the space that you need to pay attention to. That's how you know your subconscious, your intuition, the universe is trying to talk to you. So, I mean, it really makes sense that people would be disconnected from their bodies. It makes sense. That's like society teaches us to do that. And when we reconnect with our bodies, because we have been ignoring our bodies for so long, there's a bunch of crap in there. And it's so hard to process all of that and deal with all of that. Myself, I've been trying to disconnect from my body because it hurts so bad in here my whole life. I only recently started to love myself and accept myself, I think, when I turned 32. So the body is like the most powerful tool for psychic perception, in my opinion.
Wow. Thank you for that. And yeah, just the body being the tool for psychic perception, and that we truly do access that by allowing ourselves to feel everything within us. It feels like the more that we feel, the more we become clear, and the more that we're able to become the channel for the psychic abilities and whatever it may be that we have the gift inside of us. Do you believe that each person has these psychic channeling abilities within them?
I think everybody has the ability to sense energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think with a lot of work and practice, if mediumship is not something that you're born with, I think you can develop it, but it requires practice and work. Channeling, I think, probably would be the most difficult one. Again, I think with a lot of work and practice, if you're not born with it, you can do it. I have learned that these abilities are a side effect of enlightenment. The more love you have in your heart, the closer you are to God, the more you can perceive the unseen. But I do think that everybody can do it if they're not naturally born with the abilities.
The more love that we have in our heart, the more we can access this. So the deeper connection to God. What has your experience been with, correct me if I'm wrong, did you grow up around religion or Christianity or anything like that?
Yeah, so very interesting. So my mom and my family is from Cuba. So I grew up practicing like ancestral practices. So I grew up in Santeria, but my mom sent me to Catholic private school for 9 years, which was very funny to me because the whole reason for Santeria was because my ancestors had their religion and their beliefs taken away from them by the colonizers, the Spanish that came and conquered these places and was like, nope, you're only allowed to believe in church stuff. And if we catch catch you, we're going to kill you. So we were all the way past that. And my mom decided to put me into Catholic school and was like, don't tell anybody what we do at home. So it was very, very confusing and conflicted. But I knew that in school, I didn't like it. I didn't like what they were teaching me because I wasn't allowed to ask questions. I would ask questions about Jesus. I would ask questions about, I was fascinated with it. I thought it was beautiful and interesting. But as soon as they got an attitude when I started asking questions, I was like, oh, this is some bullshit. This isn't real. Because if it's real, I'm allowed to ask questions. And so I kind of rejected religion right away and the idea of Jesus along with it right away. The only thing that I felt was real was what I was taught at home because I felt it and I saw it for myself. With religion, they were just like, yep, there's a guy in the sky. You better believe or you're going to get in trouble. There was no proof. Nobody showed me anything. I never felt what that felt like. But at home with the ancestral practices, I was taught how to take energy cleansing baths. I was taught how to venerate your ancestors and things like that. Very confusing, but I found my own way to God. Even though I was given two different ways, I kind of found somewhere in the middle. And I recommend that everybody finds their own way to God. That's the only way to really believe.
Yeah. Absolutely, is not someone telling us, because this is our whole approach in society of society tells us what to think, and we get to ultimately find that deep connection within ourselves, and that's truly where the only true connection can come from is when we feel it within ourselves. And I believe that's to be true because we are a part of God, a reflection of God, and so we have to figure that out on our own. That we are that. What do you feel like was the main thing that allowed you to like fully trust in God or fully accept your connection with God?
Yeah, it was the mushrooms. My first time using mushrooms, I remember I prayed. I was like so desperate, dude. So desperate. My whole life, I was very suicidal. I did not want to live. I felt pain all the time. Physical, emotional, pain all the time because I've been like this my whole life and I didn't know. So I was able to feel people's pain in my body and not know. I was able to, people's fears, I could see their worst fears in my head and I didn't know what was happening. So I thought that I was sick or there was something wrong. And so like I said, I tried all the different things. And finally, I was really scared of mushrooms too. And finally, I was like, you know what? It's this or what? Live in misery forever? I'm just going to try it. What's the worst that can happen? And so I remember I made my little concoction. I put it in the blender with all the stuff and I was holding the cup and I was like, please help me. Please help me. My brain is broken. I need your help. And I took them and it was like I was shot out into outer space. And I was floating. It was just totally black, but I was enveloped in the most love I had ever felt in my life. I've never felt love like that. It was like something that I cannot even put into words. And I felt like God gave me a hug on the inside of my body. And I heard a voice say, everything's going to be okay. And instantly the trip was over. And I was like, oh shit, God is real. God is real. And then everything was different after that. That like started my gifts fully opening. It was a long process, but that was the start.
And how long ago was that?
7 years ago.
Wow. Okay. I resonate so deeply because last weekend I also did a mushroom journey that was very deep, very intense. I'll have to tell you about it sometime. I'm sure we will at some point. It was very interesting because I was taken through each vibrational level to ultimately getting to a place where I felt like, oh, this is God, this is source. And so with that, if you could describe God or what God means to you, what would that be?
Oh, this is a tough one. Well, for me, it feels like it's everything and also nothing, right? Because there isn't really a personification of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a man, it's not a woman, it's a force. It's a force, but it really, to me, it feels like love. Love so expansive and huge that you can cry for days because you just feel so much bliss inside of you. Like everything is perfect, even when it's not. And I know I'm thinking about my old self, and my old self would be like, yeah, right. But it really exists. Like this feeling really exists. But I think that in order to feel it, you have to have an open heart. And why, logically, would you have an open heart in this world? It's a scary world. Most of us have been hurt from the earliest possible age. So it doesn't make logical sense to live with your heart open when you have been hurt. And you know that most likely you'll get hurt again. But there's a way to live with your heart so open that you can feel the hurt and experience life's painful things, but still feel God within you and have this knowing that no matter what, everything is going to be okay. Another thing that I did, that mushroom experience allowed me to feel what it feels like when you die. I have felt that now since the mushroom experience. I feel that with no substances. I can go there. I can feel that. Breath work does that for me. I can be with God and I can feel the presence of God. And I go into it's like nothing and everything, and time doesn't exist in that space. But in order to get there, we have to let go of our bodies. And that's really hard to do, especially if you do have a fear of death, because the ego is hanging on tight and it will tell you that you're in danger when really the ego is just in danger of dissolving.
Yes. How does somebody form a connection with their ego so that it doesn't run the ship any longer?
For me, it feels like the ego is made of fear. I don't think it's necessary for us to demonize the ego. I don't think the ego is evil. I think that it's a part of us that we have when we enter a human body, and it's trying to protect us, but it's trying to protect us from something that we need. So the ego feels like a very limited, scared part of us. And the ego gets in the way of us connecting with God. But we should look at it as an innocent child, because anything you try to push away gets stronger. The key to peace is acceptance. You can accept something and still work on getting rid of it. You don't have to be like, I have to kill my ego. It's evil. It's holding me back in life. No, it's literally trying to protect you. It doesn't know that you don't need it. So you have to lay it to rest with love and peace. Because again, anything that you push away and you reject is going to come chasing after you.
Yeah, I love that so much, of the innocent child, and something that interesting of in this space channeling things that were coming through. But what I was just hearing is that God instilled the ego within us, or created this human body so that we have the ego to be in a space Earth is a big space of duality. And so we have this part within us of we can choose to live from fear, or we can choose to live from love. And that is what we are seeing in this world right now, is that there is so much fear instilled within us. And so we also have this aspect within us of the fear, or we can choose the love, which is forming the deeper connection with ourselves, listening to our intuition, choosing to walk a path of God, of our higher self, and also seeing that we do have this aspect to us of fear. If we didn't have the ego, we wouldn't be able to see the duality, see the difference. So I love that so much. I have a couple questions. What do you feel is currently happening in the world during this time with all these energies that are transpiring, whatever you want to call it, the darkness, the elites, whatever, instilling fear into us more than ever, but also having this strong sense of people awakening? What do you feel like is happening in our world during this time? What are we here in this experience for?
When I first woke up, my spirit guides told me that the earth is going to be cleansed. And I was like, what do you mean? This was before COVID. I had no idea. I was really not even into spirituality like that. But they told me the earth is going to be cleansed and all the bad guys are going to get caught. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And so they showed me that the earth is going through a transformation. The earth is changing in frequency, just like we are changing in frequency. In order for us to stay here and live on earth, we need to change as well. So the earth's change looks like earthquakes, volcanoes, weird weather, just random thing, weird new animals being found that have never been found before. She's changing. And we are all changing along with it because it's our environment. We cannot live without it, and it cannot live without us. This is kind of where we're going. We're all transforming together. All the yucky stuff that we're seeing has been happening for so long, and people just didn't know about it. There are people that have known, but usually those people are locked up in a mental institution, told that they're crazy, put on meds. They can't even function, so they end up homeless, and we ostracize them. And now everything that they've been saying is happening. So everybody has to be awake and aware to what has been going on in order for us to change. You can't change something if you're not willing to look at it. So it has to get so bad so that people wake up and they're like, we can't do this anymore. Like, my neighbor is not my enemy. So when shit hits the fan, what happens? All of a sudden, everybody's a hero. And duality is over, right? Because someone is suffering in front of me. I'm going to help them. So all of this scary stuff is bringing us together so that we can remember what's important and we can open our hearts and we can shift with the earth. I wish it would happen a little faster, but unfortunately, it takes time. It takes time to wake up. Remember, I told you my mushroom thing was 7 years ago. It takes time for people to wake up and realize what's important. And I am still on the healing journey, even though that was 7 years ago. So it's going to take the earth and everyone on it a little bit of time to get with the program, but it's already happening. And I think everybody can see that if they look around and pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know that I see it in my life. I see those that are choosing to live a path where they do open their hearts consistently and live from that space of love and deep connection with God. And I also see right in front of me people that are choosing to live from the past patterns, past behaviors and traumas and ego. So how would you say that someone can move their vibration and frequency with the earth? If I'm somebody like, yeah, I want to go on this path, I know it's hard, how do I do that?
The first step would be purification. So most people don't know anything about their energy bodies or how the energy body works. And a lot of us are, especially younger people, are getting more and more and more sensitive. So remember, if you open your heart, you become more psychic. So the younger generations are all extremely psychic and they don't know, and they're being diagnosed. So I think that really connecting with yourself, cleansing yourself, connecting with the earth, purification of the energy body is very important because we are holding energies that belong to other people. And then we go home and we feel like crap and we don't know why. We'll take a pill, we'll do God knows what to try to feel better. And we don't feel better. We feel heavy and we feel stuck. It's because our energy bodies are so full of dense energy. So I recommend energy cleansing baths or showers every day. I have the instructions on my Instagram page. So that's the purification aspect. If you want to change with the earth, spend time with the earth. Sit down, talk to it. It's alive. It is an entity and it loves you and it loves us and it's supporting us all the time. When I go sit on the earth and I just put my hands there and I talk to her, I get so emotional because I can feel that she loves me. And I think that people need to talk more to themselves, to be honest with. And we're taught, well, talking to yourself means you're crazy. Don't talk to yourself, because we see people walking around talking to themselves. We think they're crazy. Talk to yourself. How are you going to get to know yourself and what you specifically need if you don't talk to yourself? Shifting vibrations and raising your vibration with the earth, heal your trauma. There you go. That's it. And the purification just helps you heal your trauma. But really, this is all about healing trauma because we have these stores of energy in our bodies. We have pain in our bodies and it's stuck there and it affects everything we do, every choice we make, all of our relationships, our relationship to ourselves. And when you heal that and that emotion comes out of you, you have a space there and it goes from dense in that space into light. And that raises your vibration. And eventually you heal so much that your heart just opens automatically on its own. Make choices from love. It's hard. It's hard. Every choice you have the opportunity to make. Remind yourself, what would I do if I love myself so much and I love everybody in the world so much? I'm not saying unconditional love is not unconditional tolerance, right? We're not going to let people be shady or not nice to us. We're going to have very firm boundaries. But when you have very, very firm boundaries, you do it because you love yourself. So everything from love. First, your relationship with yourself is the most important. All relationships are born from your relationship with yourself. Fix that, everything else is fixed.
Wow. Lots of amazing things in there. And it's also very simple. We try to make it too complex. And I think that's because of the society that we live in. We're always searching for answers outside of ourselves. And from just listening to what you say of like, connect with the earth. You want to shift with the earth? Well, then connect with the earth. You want to raise your vibration, heal your trauma. It's really as simple as that. I will also say that I do the energy purification baths, thanks to your recommendation. And they're amazing. And I love them so much. But it really is that simple. Heal the trauma and it will help you raise your vibration, because as we heal the trauma, we're letting go of the lower vibrations, which ultimately allow us to raise our vibration. I know that you recently have gotten more into breath work, and I feel like this is a big part of healing the trauma. What do you feel like breath allows people to access within themselves?
It feels like you're opening a door directly to your subconscious. It feels like usually most people have like a veil between their conscious mind and their subconscious. And the more you ignore your body, the bigger it turns like into a wall. And the more you listen to your body and connect with your body, it's like the veil starts to dissolve. So it feels like breath work puts you into a state where your subconscious can very easily communicate with you, tell you what's wrong, and then you put your body into this state where you have a somatic release of energy. So honestly, breath work and shadow work, you say that it's simple, and it is simple, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's simple. It is. Yeah. Do this and it works, but it's really freaking hard. So I think breath work gives people a very somewhat easy tool. It's like you breathe like this, stuff is coming out. There's no guesswork. It's not like science. You just do it and it works. And I love that. So whenever you feel like you have pent up energy in your body, or like for myself, I'll feel heaviness. I feel heaviness in my chest, like I need to cry, but it's not budging. That's how I know I need to do some breath work. And then it's like I blossom like a flower and everything pours out of my body. And after there's just so much relief. And I love that we can just so easily guide people through these experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And to touch on that of like, it is hard. And I know that's something for myself with breath work, and something that it has taught me is that, when I was in a place I got into breath work when I was in deep anxiety, depression, suicidality, and that's what brought me to breath. And it was hard, but I feel that breath work has allowed me to go into that hard space over and over and over again. And the breathing is difficult and it's tough at times. You bring things up and you face them, and then you move on, and you're in a better place from that, and you feel so much better. You feel so much lighter. So it is hard facing these parts of ourself that are the shadow self. It's definitely hard. I just know that for myself, as I have put myself into the space of breath and bringing these shadows up, it honestly makes it sometimes when I'm like feeling something in my current life, it's like, ooh, I get to feel this. Yeah, it might be hard and there's difficulties, but I can see where it brings me afterwards, after I feel it. I have so much more clarity in it. It feels like an evolution. It feels like an increase in vibration. So it is hard, but I will say that it gets easier a bit the more you keep allowing yourself to feel. I love that. We've touched on a lot of amazing and great things, and I appreciate all your wise words and your wisdom and you following this path. I would love just if you have a message or something that might be with you right now, talking from this psychic Nicole self. Is there any message that you feel like maybe God, source, or spirit guides or anything wants to leave for the people here today?
I think that a lot of people feel insignificant and powerless. I think everybody is focusing on the world stage right now, and it looks really scary. It looks really bad. And I think if you focus too much on what's happening outside of you, you lose control of what's happening inside of you. And you also lose sight of the fact that you are in control of your reality. Don't focus on the outside, focus on what's inside. You're powerful. You are so powerful. We have so much power that we don't know about, that we have forgotten about. You have spiritual sovereignty and an authority. We all have spiritual authority. And one very important realization I had was that my brain is not in charge. My soul is in charge. The soul is what is leading the body. So my soul is in charge of my brain, it's in charge of my thoughts, and it's in charge of my body. There is something big that's in charge of the show, and we need to lean more on that thing. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how do I do that? Sit with yourself, touch your body, put your hands on your body and say, body, I want to connect with you more. I'm sorry I have ignored you. I'm here. I love you. I want to feel my power. Show me how to do that. And sit in silence and observe. Observation is so important. Don't try. Just allow. Allow your mind to show you exactly what you need to do. And it might bring up a relationship. It might bring up a habit that you have. It might bring up something in your life that is holding you back. Believe it when it shows you. Every opportunity you have to make a choice is an opportunity to change your life in a profound way. Treat every chance that you have to make a choice as an opportunity to lead yourself to the life that you want to have, and know that you are powerful.
Amazing words. And just thank you so much for all that you have brought into the space today. And also thank you for the guidance that you have had for myself and in my life. I have deep gratitude for you. If people want to see more of your things or get into your containers, what does that look like? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at the High Priestess 11.
Cool. Perfect. I highly recommend following her. She has great stuff and also some funny things too. So there's a lot of amazing stuff on the page. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. And to all the viewers and listeners, just thank you for being here as well. And we hope that this message touched your heart today and allowed it to open up a little bit more. All right. Catch you on the next one. Peace.
Yes.